So I'm Keaton Sadoski, and together we're here to show you how to build a VPN. So over the course of the last few years, we've been taking a lot of cybersecurity courses. So shout out to the Gen Cyber Camp that's hosted here over summer. It's an amazing summer camp. I learned a lot. So and during these courses, we noticed, there are a lot of bad guys out there willing to take your information. And at the same time, while taking these courses, we realized, there's a lot of ways to protect against these bad guys willing to steal information. So one of these methods is a VPN. And so a VPN is basically a tunnel between the client, which is your phone, your laptop, whatever you're using to connect to the internet, to a server, which then directs your traffic outside to the internet. So businesses use this. So let's say I work for BSidesAugusta, and they send me to a 4-night stay in Morocco. So if I want to connect back to the BSides networks, all I have to do is set up a VPN. And this allows me to connect my client, my phone, my laptop, to their service, and I can be able to access their service. And this is also used casually. So let's say, or ISPs often take logs on what people do on the internet. So they take what they do on the internet. So they take what you do on the internet and they log it into these user IDs. And what they do with these user IDs is sell them to advertising places, and they advertise based on what you do on the internet, which is, I don't want direct advertising towards me. So what I can do to hide my traffic is use VPN. And so in the world of VPNs, there are different data encryption protocols. There's IPsec, which is what we use. And there's also a great alternative called OpenSSL, which is an amazing alternative, but we decided to use IPsec. And so why should I invest time and energy into making a VPN? So obviously there are benefits, or else we wouldn't be up here talking to you about them. So it provides an extra layer of security. So like I talked about earlier, the IPsec encryption on top of the already standard encryption you have on your internet traffic. And as well as it provides a system of anonymity. We had a debate over the discussion or the pronunciation of this word I lost. So anonymity of your traffic. So what a VPN does, it disguises your traffic. So let's say I'm sitting in McDonald's Wi-Fi. I'm seeing McDonald's using their Wi-Fi. And so all McDonald's sees, or all someone sitting in McDonald's Wi-Fi sees, is me connecting to my server. They don't see what I'm doing on the internet, they just see me connecting to my server, and from there my server directs it out to the internet and returns it back to me. So there are obvious drawbacks to using VPN as well. So the constricted bandwidth you have, because you're reliant on the hardware that you're using for your server. So let's say you're using a lower or a newer or older model of Raspberry Pi, like a Raspberry Pi 1 or 2, well not 2, but 1, or Arduino. Those hardwares are limited in their capacity to handle traffic that's coming to it. And so if it's overwhelmed with that traffic, your bandwidth is going to suffer because of it. So if you use a bunch of clients, your phone, your wife's phone, your laptop, your hardware is going to be overwhelmed with that traffic, and your bandwidth is going to suffer because of it. Also, anything you do in real time on the internet is going to suffer because of it, suffer because of your hardware restrictions, such as playing video games. Their latency is going to skyrocket when you use VPN sometimes. So anything you do in real time is going to suffer. And I also like to bring up the point of using your own VPN versus using a pay-for service. So when you're using a pay-for service, you're relying on the pay-for services VPN networks for your traffic. So they control the traffic you see on the internet. So when I Google something, let's say how to set up a VPN using a pay-for service, that service, and so when I Google something, advertisements show up, right? So most of the time you just scroll over advertisements and go right to the server you're looking at, no big deal. But what a pay-per-view service can do is it can say, I see this ad from Google, let's replace it with an ad that benefits me. Or what they can say is, I see this ad from Google, let's replace it with an ad that benefits me, or a piece of malware or adware that's not one of your client devices. So when you're using a pay-per-view service, you're really trusting in what they do with your internet traffic. So now that we know that there's often benefits to creating your own VPN, let's get into how to use it.
And also to touch on the ethics concerns we mentioned, we're talking about your Wi-Fi's policy or whatever network you're on, because sometimes they'll set up restrictions on what you're allowed to do on the network, and a VPN will sometimes allow you to circumvent those, and you don't want to accidentally do that So you must always be aware of what network you're on and the, and the policies associated with that. There we go. So let's get into actually building one. We broke it down to 4 simple steps. We're going to configure the Pi, we're going to configure our router, and we're going to install the necessary services and then configure those services. So let's get into it. First off, let's talk about the hardware and software we're using. We used a Raspberry Pi Model B with Raspbian 4.9. Raspberry Pis are pretty cheap, plus they're really cool to use. And the Raspbian OS is actually designed for the Raspberry Pi, so it comes with a lot of cool preloaded software that makes configuration easy. The 3 main services we're going to use are OpenSwan and the XL2TPD Layer 2 tunneling protocol daemon, as well as PPP, which is our point-to-point protocol. So as far as actual physical implementation is involved, we just connected the Raspberry Pi through an Ethernet cord to our gateways, our ISP's gateway. Yeah. We chose Ethernet because it's going to be more reliable than wireless, plus it'll help mitigate some latency and bandwidth issues you run into with VPNs. And of course, each situation is going to be different. You can use wireless for the setup. Just keep in mind when you're configuring it to configure the wireless interface instead of the Ethernet interface. As our configurations will say, we use Ethernet interface. So, configuring the Pi settings. We're going to start off by assigning a static IP, because while we're dealing with this and while we're out and about using the Pi's VPN server, we don't want it to all of a sudden jump to a different IP because of DHCP. So, by assigning a static IP, we're going to get rid of that risk at least, and at least make it more reliable. Next up, we're going to enable SSH. Raspbian is really cool when it comes to this. So all you have to do is drop a file named SSH into the bootloader folder, and it handles the rest for you. You launch the Pi, and it has SSH already initialized. And then lastly, we're going to change the default credentials for Pi and root, because if someone is scanning the ports and they find 22 is open for SSH, and they guess the default credentials and they get in, what good is your VPN server if it's not even yours? All right, now we're going to configure the router. First off, I'm going to port forward. I have 1701 up there for UDP. Although that is commonly used for the layer 2 tunneling protocol, you don't actually need it for this configuration because it will be encapsulated within the IPsec channel. But I leave it up there just to acknowledge that yes, that's normally used for L2 TPD. 4500 and 500 on UDP, that's going to be for your IPsec protocols. 22 is going to be for SSH. We're initializing SSH so we can configure it remotely so that after you set it up and you put it away somewhere remote, you don't have to worry about it anymore. You don't have to break out again and hook up hardware to it. You can just remotely connect into it. And then finally, you're going to want to assign a static IP to the Raspberry Pi, the same one you had it assumed just so they work out. I have the firmware DDWRT on my router, so this is what it looks like for me. You may have different firmware, so it may look different to you. I'm not sure how many of you guys have forwarded ports before, right? Show of hands, anyone who's forwarded ports? Yeah, not many people, right? But on the off chance that you haven't, we have a resource at the very end that will explain how to do it for most routers. So, OpenSwan.
All right, so let's get into actually installing the VPN part of this configuration. So we chose OpenSwan. It is a fantastic IPsec implementation for Linux distributions. It is amazing. Everything about it is amazing, honestly. Like, I say amazing a lot in this, so sorry, but it's just what I believe. So it's really efficient and cost-effective when you're using Raspberry Pi. So we use the Raspberry Pi Model 2, or Raspberry Pi 2 Model B, excuse me. And so, it's on, hello? There we go. Sweet. That's cool. So, like I said earlier, OpenSwan is a fantastic IPsec implementation for Linux distributions. I use amazing a lot, so sorry about that. But it's efficient, cost-effective, and it's paired with the Raspberry Pi. So we use the Raspberry Pi 2 Model B, and I checked last night on Amazon. They're going for $35 a pop. So when you have $35, you have $0 for open source OpenSwan. It's $35 total for a homegrown VPN, which is not a bad price, especially for us high school students with no money. So, plus the community behind it is amazing. There's a website right there, OpenSwan.org. So if you go and visit there, they have a fantastic community that's just willing to answer any questions whatsoever. So there's also a lot of people posting their configurations there too. So they explain to you what they did. So I did X, and this is how I implemented it, and here's how you should implement it too, and so on. So any question you have is obviously answered there. It's amazing. We checked it out, and we used it plenty while we were setting this up. It's fantastic. So it's going to actually configure this. So for the encryption part of OpenSwan, you're going to want this IPsec, obviously. So you're first going to configure the PSK, which is used for the encryption. So you're going to do that in /etc/IPsec customers.
And it's going to look like this. The most important part about this configuration is you're declaring the server's IP, and you're going to use the wildcard percentile any, because in the ideal situation when you're using this VPN, you're connecting from some remote location, you don't know where. This is going to at least accept packets coming from any IP, as long as they're providing the correct PSK. We chose secure for the example. Ironically, that's a terrible password. Ideally, you guys would use a better password, but for the purpose of the example, we have secure up there.
And so next we're going to configure the channel. That's the packet's going to go through. And so we're going to do that in /etc/IPsec.
So in this configuration file, you're going to start declaring a left and a right side. And as far as VPNs are concerned, it's just a logical designation as left side is my server, right side is my client. So left, we have the same IP as before for the server, 11.2.52. We've declared a left proto port, so the protocol 17, that's going to be UDP, and the port 1701. That's just going to be the logical port it uses within the channel. It won't actually need to go through a router's port forwarding. Right side, like we did before, we're going to declare a wildcard, percentile any, and then authentication for BSK, and like I said before, 17/wildcard any, right? So here's what our setup looks like right now. We have our VPN server on the left side, and it's going to be connected through an IPsec secure channel to your remote host across some kind of WAN or internet. But as of now, it doesn't look good because there's nothing to populate that channel. Your data streams are going to be disorganized, but they'll be encrypted, right? So we're going to add XL2 TPD. That's layer 2 tunneling protocol daemon. This by itself would work, but it provides hardly any confidentiality, and the encryption, if any on there, is terrible. So that's why we're using this in conjunction with IPsec. So when you're configuring this service, you're going to find it under the /etc/XL2TPD/XL2PDD.conf. And the important part about this configuration is you're going to declare the pool of IPs that's going to divvy out. These aren't physical, literal IPs, but they're the logical ones it keeps up with in its configurations. And then at the very bottom of this configuration, it's going to require chat. That's a challenge handshake authentication protocol. That's where we're going to set up profiles of a username password combination to separate different users on your VPN. And this will be fed through PPP, which will provide your chat. All right, so if you have different people using your VPN, not just yourself, let's say your wife or coworkers, you're going to have your own user and password. You're going to have their user and password. And ideally, well, not ideally, but unfortunately, if someone were to shoulder surf you or get a hold of your username and password, they would not have the authentication of your other users on your VPN. So this adds another layer to your VPN's security. So PPP, which is going to provide your chat authentication, is going to be configured under /PPP/options.xl2pd. And most of these are the default options for PPP. But most importantly, you'll see the MTU and MRU are set to 1200. That's your max transmission unit and your max receiving unit. Normally, it'll be 1500, but in this instance, because we're adding so many different headers on, you want to make sure it's smaller so that you have a little bit more headroom. Otherwise, if it goes over the maximum fragment size of an Ethernet packet, it'll fragment, and you're not going to want that. So we set it to 1200. So Right now, it looks like VPN on the left side has your PPP profiles on it. There's an IPsec secure channel connecting you to your VPN server and your remote host. And then within it, it's populated by several different data streams, i.e. your tunnels. And that all goes over the WAN, securely connecting you from wherever you are to your house.
All right, so this resource page you mentioned earlier, OpenSwan at the top is a fantastic resource, like I keep saying, it's fantastic. So, and if that doesn't answer a lot of your questions, there's an actual step-by-step configuration of this VPN at the wiki. It's also a fantastic resource. And for those of you who don't know how to record, there's more forwarding.
So we just want to give out a special thanks to our teacher, Ms. Whitney Patcher. She's also our Cyber Patriot coach. She's a fantastic woman. And our mentor, Mr. Matt Domko, for helping us get through this. We recognize we're high school students and we're new to this field. So if we didn't explain anything correctly, or if you just need extra clarification on what we meant, do we have any questions? Back up to the resources?
Yes, please.
Gotcha. Any other questions? We'll take pictures. Sure.
How well does it support multiple devices? So, laptop, tablet,
Well, assuming you're not all streaming at the same time, it does pretty well for providing web pages to multiple sources. It does get a little bogged down when you start streaming, just because the Raspberry Pi isn't as powerful as most other hardware, but it is still pretty powerful, so you can get by with just web pages. Yeah, so when you're configuring that, the left side on the VPN's configuration will be the VPN server, and the right side is the remote client. However, if you were to set this up on a Linux distro on a remote client, the left side would be the client, and the right side would be the server. So left side kind of refers to yourself, and the right side is where you're connecting to. Wherever. Excuse me? Oh, that's all handled by the IPsec. And the left side and right side, I believe, were configured by the L2 TPD. Oh, the left and right side were configured by the L2 TPD, whereas IPsec Phase 1, Phase 2 are handled in the IPsec configurations. Any more questions? All right, so we got some prizes to hand out. I recognize we're probably the youngest speakers here, so we're going to have a couple more millennial questions. First question, first person to answer will get a lockpick set. I've heard that these are illegal in the state of Virginia, so keep that in mind. Yeah. So, what social media app recently released a geomap feature that will show your current location? Snapchat? All right, here's that guy. All right, for our next question, we are giving out a land turtle. Drop shells anywhere. The question will be, which ports did we forward for IPsec? There you go. All right, this is the first hand I see go up. What was our terrible password? Okay. Never mind. All right, hands up. Which service handled the profiles? Yes, sir. And this is a alpha long-range speed adapter as well as a dual-band antenna. All right, this is the Blue Team Handbook Incident Response Edition. a condensed field guide for the cybersecurity incident responder. The question for this, and this hands up, but I can call on you, is what was the other option other than IPsec for encryption that we gave? You got in the back? Oh, back right, blue shirt? There you go.
Alright, so I'm gonna hold each and every one of you to building one of these. So I want to report my GitHub by tomorrow. So just saying.
Well, thank you for your time. That concludes our speech.
Yeah, thank you. It was really fun.